All right, hey everyone, what's up? Jammer here from Jammer's Wrestling Magazine Collection, and time for another video because I'm bored. It's a Saturday. That was my water bottle cracking, by the way. It's a Saturday afternoon, and I have the place to myself today because the girlfriend's at work on one of her rare weekend work appearances. So I thought I'm gonna do a magazine video because I don't know what else to do. And today I chose to do the year 1984. Now, why 1984? I don't really know. I just saw an 84 magazine sitting on the shelf. I thought, you know what, that's a good year to do. We haven't done 84 yet. Let's do it. I'm only missing one PWI from 1984, and I can't find it in Canada. I'm probably gonna have to get it from the States. I think it's kind of expensive too. I believe it's the one with Kerry Von Erich on the cover as NWA champion. So, here we go. For 1984, we start out with PWI with Rick Martel on the cover. Is AWA Wrestling too tough for Rick Martel? So Rick Martel left the WWF back in the early 80s, chose to go to the AWA to try to, use his craft there to become a world champion. And it did happen, right? But do we have posters in here? Some of these, we do. Who's the, wow. NWA World Champion, Harley Race. Nice. Yeah, a lot of these old ones, I still have the posters in, thankfully. I don't know how I got lucky with that, but I'll allow it. January 84 for the wrestler. Roddy Piper is risking his life. This killer feud with Greg Valentine must be stopped. That would be leading into Starrcade 83 here. And we also got, is Hulk Hogan afraid to be champion? So Hulk Hogan was in the AWA at the time. Looks like he's wrestling Crusher Blackwell there. And the Hulkster, of course, was getting ready to make his big return, wasn't he, to the WWF? In just a little bit there, we will see that happen. Inside Wrestling, January 84. Will the NWA ban the claw hold? David Von Erich, I'll quit if they do. So this is one of the rare last appearances of David Von Erich on a cover too, probably. No, never mind. I see one coming up. But this, maybe for Inside Wrestling, I'm pretty sure he passes away in 1984. So I'm guessing we're going to see few and far between covers of David coming up here, unfortunately. January 84 for Sports Review Wrestling. The 10-year chase is over. Andre finally corners Abdullah. And Nick Bockwinkel's championship diary, a year of hell, a year of glory. So there's Nick with the AWA World title. One of the great world champions was Nick Bockwinkel, right? He did wonders with that AWA belt more than anyone else ever did, I find. Even, in the late 80s, you had Larry Zbyszko with a good run, but Bockwinkel owned that belt all through the 70s and 80s. For February 84, for PWI, we get a rare shot of Greg the Hammer Valentine on the cover. There he is, Greg the Hammer Valentine's wrestling savage genius. So the Hammer makes a cover there. Also, this one's coming apart, but it's okay. And we got Jimmy Jam Garvin. Of course, he was gorgeous Jimmy Garvin here with Sunshine as the poster for that issue. For February 84 for the wrestler, we have, yes, David Von Erich's on the cover of this one. David Von Erich is wrestling's most vicious opponent, and how far can Hulk Hogan carry his American dream? So he's still in the AWA there, by the looks of those ropes and everything. So, I don't know why Vern Gagne never put the belt on Hogan. I'll never understand that. Inside Wrestling, February 94. We got Why I Couldn't Admit Brett Wayne Was My Brother by Buzz Sawyer, and Abdullah punctures the American dream. The Sunshine State turns red with Dusty Rhodes' blood. Well, when didn't Dusty Rhodes bleed, right? The guy bled, I think, in every match back in the 80s. In every big time match he had, he bled. For Sports Review Wrestling, February 84. This is the cover that people wanted to see this match. Finally, the WWE Network did get it up. Somehow they found it in all their video footage. It's the last battle of Atlanta with Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer. Yes, this match is on the WWE Network. I did watch it because you'd hear about it for years, and the rumor was that Ole Anderson would tape over the old stuff, so because they were cheap, they didn't want to buy new tapes. Somehow that didn't get taped over. I guess that it does exist. I did watch it. So, but there's a cover shot of it right there. Buzz Sawyer and Tommy Rich in that enclosed steel cage match. Of course, that was the beginning of what would become the Hell in a Cell for the WWE in 1997. For March of '84 for PWI, we got the year-end awards. There's the Road Warriors Tag Team of the Year. They're holding the Georgia National Tag Team titles there. That's when they were still wrestling in the NWA. They hadn't went to the AWA yet, but let's see who won the awards here. I don't know how they did it here. Hold on. Okay, so starts off with most popular, went to Jimmy Snuka, with Dusty Rhodes, David Von Erich, and the Junkyard Dog as the runners-up. Most hated was Greg the Hammer Valentine, with the Masked Superstar, Kevin Sullivan, and Michael P.S. Hayes as the runners-up. Tag Team of the Year was the Road Warriors, with the Von Erichs, the Freebirds, and the Briscoes as the runners-up. Most Improved Wrestler of the Year was Brett Wayne, with Mike Rotundo, Pez Whatley, and Brad Rangans as the runners-up. Did I miss one here? Oh, yeah. Manager of the Year was James J. Dillon, with runners-up to Sheik Adnan Al-Kaisi, Lou Albano, and Precious Paul Ellering. Wrestler of the Year went to Handsome Harley Race, with runners-up Nick Bockwinkel, Andre the Giant, and Bob Backlund. Match of the Year went to Harley Race versus Ric Flair. And there's a nice picture of Harley and Rick there. We got a sweet centerfold here of Jimmy Superfly Snuka and Hulk Hogan. And Most Improved, Brett Wayne right there. So Match of the Year, Harley Race versus Ric Flair, of course, with runners-up Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood versus Sergeant Slaughter and Don Cornado, Don Morocco versus Pedro Morales, and Tommy Rich versus Buzz Sawyer. Inspirational Wrestler of the Year went to Hulk Hogan, with Roddy Piper, Buzz Sawyer, and Playboy Buddy Rose as the runners-up. Rookie of the Year was Angelo Moscow Jr., with King Kong Bundy, Scott Armstrong, and Arn Anderson as the runners-up. Arn should have kept that hat. What an interesting look that would have been for the Four Horsemen if he would have kept that look. And the Editor's Award went to the Grand Wizard, who unfortunately passed away a little bit before that. So there it is, your year-end awards for 1983. What a interesting winners there, too, for some of those. Angelo Moscow Jr. beat out King Kong Bundy for Rookie of the Year, and I think Bundy had a little bit of a better career than Moscow Jr. did. The wrestler for March 84. Is Tito Santana trying to blackmail the WWF? I don't know. Hulk Hogan. I am the man who finished Harley Race. So there's that story. I talked about, I know my buddy Zeke Zanzibar loves that, just the way that's said. It doesn't sound good, does it? I'm the man who finished Harley Race. I feel like they could have worded that better. But I mentioned that in the Best of the Wrestler, the Wrestler Annual or whatever, that magazine. So there it is. There's the story right there. It was in March 84. Inside Wrestling for March 84. We get Junkyard Dog and the Fans, The Chain That Can Never Be Broken, and Rich is Savaged by Jake Roberts. I Hope I Didn't Destroy Tommy Rich by Buzz Sawyer. Interesting. I guess Jake was wrestling in Georgia at the time. I know he was there. I remember he was TV champ. I just wasn't sure what year he was there. So I thought he was in Mid-South then, but I guess not. And Sports Review for March 84, it's the Starrcade 83 results, which I've talked about before in a video. These Sports Review Wrestling always did a good in-depth detail look at Starrcade each year, and there we had Ric Flair regains the NWA World Title, Steamboat and Youngblood regain the World Tag Titles, and Piper Valentine bloody dog collar match. So there's all that right there. It's a great magazine, that one, actually. If you're a fan of Starrcade and whatnot, it's the one to get. Move this back a bit now. There we go. April of '84. This is a classic magazine. I mean, it goes for decent money. People seem to want this magazine because of the cover. It's this right here. Exclusive coverage. Ric Flair whips Harley Race for the NWA title. A second chance at greatness. That's a sweet cover. And we got, of course, Soul Man Rocky Johnson as the poster inside. But yes, this is the cover that Shawn Michaels tried to emulate, I guess is the word, I believe, when he tried to dress up like Ric Flair and try to be Ric Flair when he was like a teenager. So there it is. April '84 for the wrestler. Paul Ellering, Why I Had to Form the Legion of Doom, the pro debut of the youngest Von Erich, introducing Mike Von Erich, and Hulk Hogan's return to the WWF, what it means to wrestling. So there it is. The Hulkster is now back with the WWF. So he would be getting ready to have Hulkamania run wild in a matter of moments. Inside Wrestling for April '84. We got Rick Steamboat Quits Wrestling, the real story behind his most painful decision. And Masked Superstar Seeks Revenge. It's Mulligan's fault I'm not WWF champion. Ironically, Masked Superstar and Blackjack Mulligan there would go on to form a tag team in 1986 as the Machines. And Steamboat, he quit wrestling so much of it, it was ridiculous how much Ricky was like, I'm quitting, I'm back, I'm quitting, I'm back. And I don't know why. I'm not too sure what, maybe it was his wife's decision sometimes. I've heard that. I don't know how true that is. But we got now April '84 for Sports Review Wrestling. Sunshine begs the fans, convince Kevin Von Erich to let me be his valet. And what power does J.J. Dillon hold over Kendo Nagasaki? Looks like he's holding a Singapore cane to his throat. That looks like the power that JJ has at the moment there. But nice shot of Kevin Von Erich on the cover here. Usually it's David or Kerry, right? And there we got Kevin. Next up, May of '94. For PWI, we get Hulk Hogan. Can the fans ever forgive his past treachery? Talking about his heel run in the WWF back in the early 80s. And we got Butch Reed, Hacksaw Butch Reed here as the poster. He would go on to become the natural Butch Reed with blonde hair in the WWF a few years from here. Interesting enough on this, it says, special feature, Arena Report, WWF match results. So even PWI in 1984 could see the writing on the wall that the WWF was going to be the main organization to check out. And maybe Vince McMahon contacted them and said, listen, you might want to follow us because we're going to be the only, draw in town pretty soon. And he wasn't wrong, right? Like Vince took over in the 80s. May of '84 for the wrestler. We got, will the fans ever see Barry Windham's face again? Dirty Yellow Dog and his mask of shame. Of course, Barry Windham was the dirty yellow dog there, I guess. He lost a Loser Leaves Town match, I believe, and came back as that. Ironically enough, in 1991 in WCW, Barry Windham would defeat Brian Pillman in a Loser Leaves WCW match, and Brian Pillman would return as the Yellow Dog. So, kind of funny how that all worked out full circle there. And Gary Hart's greatest managerial feat, how I guided Kernodle and Orton to the World Tag Team title. Yes, Don Kernodle won a second NWA World Tag Team Championship, this time with Cowboy Bob Orton. So there we go. Bob Orton did hold a world title, the World Tag Team Championship, in 1984 for the NWA, before going back to the WWF. Inside Wrestling, May '84. We got Iron Sheik. I drove Bob Backlund out of wrestling. That is the only cover you'll see with the Iron Sheik with the WWF Championship. I don't get it. I'm not sure why that wasn't a bigger deal. I mean, you defeated a guy who held the title for 5.5 years, almost 6 years was Backlund's reign. You think that'd be a little more of a bigger news story that Backlund got defeated, but it really wasn't, apparently. Mike Rotundo's solid gold future, ready to rule the NWA. And Rick Steamboat defeats Sergeant Slaughter, his farewell gift to the fans. So there's Steamboat leaving, I guess. And he would come back months later, of course. Sports Review Wrestling for May of '84. We got Joe LeDuc versus Buzz Sawyer. Paul Ellering's search for a new Mad Dog goes on. Joe LeDuc's forehead was a gift in its own right. You know, if you look at it, it was just scarred. It was cut up. It was like when Joe LeDuc would get blood in a match. I don't think he even cared how he took the razor blade to his forehead. He would just gnaw his forehead up to very disgusting, very, very gross. But I guess that's what made him special. I think he was also the guy in Memphis who took an axe to his arm and cut his arm for the oath of beating up Jerry Lawler on live TV. Paul Jones, How I Made the Assassins Wrestling's Most Terrifying Tag Team. The Assassins there were... so the guy on this one right here is Nick Patrick's dad, referee Nick Patrick. That's his dad. His name was Jody Hamilton. And the guy right here in the mask, that's actually Hercules Hernandez. That's the Mighty Hercules from the WWF. He was the other assassin at the time. And so that's kind of neat. For you people out there, you now know Hercules was in the NWA before the WWF as an assassin. And, interesting note, was in WCW in 1992 as Super Invader, as a masked wrestler again. We got June '84. For PWI, the carnage continues why the NWA is afraid to stop Ted DiBiase. There he is, the Ted DiBiase with the black glove, being as dastardly as he could at the time. And a beardless Ted at that, right? Again, up here, special to the PWI, WWF Arena results. So that was a big deal here. WWF was really coming on strong, and we got Dirty Dick Slater, Mr. Unpredictable, as the centerfold there. Of course, his idol, he really was. He idolized Terry Funk. That was his idol, and you could even kind of tell by looking at this photo that Dickie Slater wanted to be like Terry Funk. June '84 for The Wrestler. And this is it here. David Von Erich's last appearance. David Von Erich will never forget you. David Von Erich, of course, passed away in Japan on a tour. Ric Flair just stated in an interview with some comedian guy named Theo something. He's got like a mullet and such, this comedian, that David Von Erich died because he took too many somas. And when you take somas, it relaxes your muscles. And he had to throw up. His body wanted him to throw up, and his muscles were too relaxed. He couldn't throw up. So he choked on his own vomit. At least that's what Ric Flair said. And if that's true, that's really sad. What a way to go, horribly. But yeah, David Von Erich will never forget you. So there it is. This was June of '84, this edition. So if you're a Von Erich fan and you want to get something to remember David, this would be the one to get, June '84 of The Wrestler. Inside Wrestling, June '84. Ric Flair on the defensive. Is Mike Rotundo ready to take the NWA title? And did Angelo Moscow Jr. win the Mid-Atlantic title too soon? I believe he defeated Ivan Koloff for that title, did Angelo Moscow Jr. And Mike Rotundo, of course, never did win the NWA World title, was World Television Champion and World Tag Team Champion in the NWA, and Florida Champion, but never the World Champ. His son, however, would get that distinct honor a few times in the WWE. June '84 for Sports Review Wrestling. Barry Windham's undeserved title shot. Why the NWA treats Ric Flair like a dirty yellow dog. Oh my God, that dirty yellow dog stuff. And we get the inside story why a disgusted Eddie Gilbert left the WWF. Yes, Eddie Gilbert there, if you can see him here. That's Eddie. That's Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. He was a young rookie in the WWF in the early '80s, kind of being mentored by Bob Backlund at the time, if I remember correctly, from what I read and such. But I think he did a lot better as a villain in Memphis than he ever would in the WWF. I believe him and Kurt Hennig were also a tag team in the early 80s in the WWF. We now go to July. July 1984 for PWI. We have Jimmy Vallant's message to the fans. It's time for you to boogie woogie. There he is, the handsome Jimmy Vallant, former WWF Tag Team Champion in the NWA, feuding with Paul Jones and the likes of those guys. We got Paul Ellering, the precious one, as a centerfold. Yes, Paul Ellering used to wrestle before he managed the Road Warriors. He had a really good wrestling career, but kept blowing out his knee to the point where he couldn't do it anymore. So he turned to managing. The wrestler for July 84. Tommy Rich is back, and he owes it to the fans. There's Wildfire right there. And we got Billy Jack's Own Story Part 2, How Professional Wrestling Saved My Life down there. Part 1 was in The Other Wrestler with David Von Erich on the cover. So Billy Jack Haynes was an interesting wrestler, right? I mean, he was kind of dubbed as like a big superstar to come into the 80s. They compared him and Kerry Von Erich as like these new sex symbols to the women and like these great stars for the men to cheer. And, Kerry did win the world title, albeit just for 3 weeks, but Billy Jack Haynes never did that. I think he was USWA champion in Memphis. I think that, and I think he held the title in Florida. I think that's it. I think that was his big world, and by world, I mean like the top of that promotion, right? That belt, the heavyweight belt of that promotion. Oh, let's see. What's next? Oh, Inside Wrestling. There we go. It is with Ric Flair on the cover. We got Ric Flair brings the world title to the New York area. A night of champions at the Meadowlands. Rick Martel versus Dino Bravo. Can the fans choose sides? So there's an interesting cover there of the Nature Boy. I believe that looks like a cover from like 1981, that photo. That's definitely not an 84 photo, but still looks good. Sports Review Wrestling for July 84. We got, before it cost him the world title, Ric Flair must make peace with the Freebirds. There we see Terry Bam Bam Gordy and the Nature Boy on the cover there. And up here we got an exclusive coverage from Chicago, the tag team tournament that blew away the Windy City, with Greg Gagne and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, the High Flyers there. Former AWA World Tag Team Champions before Jim left to go to the WWF, become a Killer Bee. August 84 for PWI. Can Jerry Lawler survive his own dreams of greatness? There he is, Jerry the King Lawler on the cover here of the PWI. Pretty sweet. Again, on the cover, special the PWI WWF match results. So they're really giving you that now, big time, showing you. And we got Stan Hansen, the Lariat man himself. Blind as a bat, Stan Hansen as the centerfold that month of August for PWI. August 84 for The Wrestler. Exclusive coverage. Ronnie Garvin battles Jake Roberts in Baltimore. Hands of Stone crushes the Snake. And Florida fans beg for Brett Sawyer's help. Only you can save your brother Buzz from Kevin Sullivan. And so there we go. I guess Buzz Sawyer's back to being a villain again down in Florida. And we got Ronnie Garvin and Jake Roberts battling over, I believe, the Georgia Television Championship there. Inside Wrestling, August 84. If Magnum TA destroys Mr. Wrestling 2, will he also destroy himself? And free membership cards. Junkyard Dog joins Jim Vallant's Boogie Woogie Brigade, and so can you. So this is the JYD's last stop, I guess, before going to the WWF, because he would soon be making his long-awaited appearance there in the World Wrestling Federation. Sports Review Wrestling, August 84. Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert. Just how fabulous are Fargo's fabulous ones? And American champion Chris Adams living in the shadow of the Von Erichs. This is weird, right? Like, you already had the fabulous ones in Memphis. That was Stan Lane and Steve Kern. And to repackage a new team and call them like another version of the fabulous ones, Tommy Rich did not need that, by the way. Tommy Rich, former NWA World Champion, already had a name for himself in wrestling. He did not need to do this. I don't know what they were thinking. But him and Eddie Gilbert were the Memphis Tag Team Champions, and Eddie Gilbert turned on Tommy, and a feud started there. We got September 84 for PWI. Hawk and Animal Under Siege, the NWA's official plan to ban the Road Warriors. Well, that's okay. We'll just go to the AWA and dominate that company for a year. And that's exactly what they did. And here we got Hulk Hogan, WWF Heavyweight Champion, as the centerfold. There's the original green belt with the round gold on it. That's iconic, right? Only Bob Backlund, Iron Sheik, and Hulk Hogan had that one. So pretty cool. And that's what kind of irritated me about the Iron Sheik when he would do photos for fans. He didn't have that belt. He had the big gold belt as the belt for poses, and it's like, Sheik, you never held that title. But oh well. He was the Sheik, so what does it matter? September 84 for the wrestler. Kerry Von Erich wins the NWA World Title for David, for Texas, and for wrestling. So that was that big parade of champions for David Von Erich in Texas, and Ric Flair did the honors to Kerry Von Erich, and Kerry got the world title for 3.5 weeks, I think it was, or so. Lost it back to Rick in Japan, and that was it. That was the last time Kerry was world champ for the NWA or any real, he was WCCW champion, which of course is his own territory, his dad's territory, but he never held the AWA or never held the NWA again, never held WWF world titles. So we got September 84 for Inside Wrestling. We got Rick Martel dethrones Jumbo Tsuruta, finally an AWA champion to be proud of. And we got Joe LeDuc versus Bruiser Brody, a Night of Terror, a Night of Justice. I'm sure that was a bloody match with those two. But yes, Rick Martel finally becomes world champion of the AWA. I think he held it for close to 2 years before losing it to Stan Hansen. So Martel finally got the gold. And Sports Review Wrestling for September 84. Ric Flair versus Rick Steamboat. I guess Steamboat's now back again in wrestling. And of course, the Parade of Champions in Texas, results and photos and all that. So, kind of neat that Sports Review Wrestling would really go into detail on these events. So, like I said, I don't have the October PWI. That's the one with Kerry Von Erich on the cover. So I got to skip that. I'll go to the wrestler now, though. We got Ric Flair's third title reign will be his shortest. There's Ric Flair versus Ronnie Garvin on the cover. And an odd couple at odds, why Dusty Rhodes and Adrian Street will never team again. Of course, Exotic Adrian Street unfortunately just passed away. I believe it was like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. He was older now. That's one blessing, right? He lived a good life. He lived a long life. He didn't die suddenly in his 20s or 30s. He definitely had a great wrestling career and was one of the first, right? You got like your Gorgeous Georges, and you got your Exotic Adrian Streets, who really tested the waters for gimmicks and characters and how fans would react. And, he was one of the best. He definitely was a trailblazer for many other entertainers in wrestling along the way. Next up, we have October for Inside Wrestling. Collision of the Florida Musclemen. Can Billy Jack squeeze Superstar Graham out of wrestling? So Superstar Billy Graham back in wrestling. He's in the Florida area, trying to be the star there, trying to get the title and trying to reclaim that fame he had in the WWF in the late 70s and whatnot. But unfortunately, Superstar Billy Graham was never going to be that guy again, unfortunately. This was during his Ninja era too, where he had a shaved head, had a mustache, and wore the black, Great Muta style ninja pants. It was really weird, but that's what he was doing. And Sports Review for October 84. We got Kevin Sullivan. I've driven the dream to his knees. Of course, Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan feuding in Florida there. There we see a young Bill Alfonso as the referee. And we got Michael P.S. Hayes up here. It says Freebirds Rule Rock Video, the making of Bad Street USA. Of course, Michael Hayes was Chris Jericho before Chris Jericho was Chris Jericho, I guess, right? Michael Hayes was a wrestler / rock and roller in the 80s. What do we got next? We have November of 84 for PWI. Sergeant Slaughter, I pledge allegiance to the fans. That's right, the Sarge is in the WWF. He's now a good guy. He's no longer a hated villain, so he's going to get ready to feud with the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov soon. And we got the centerfold of Rick Martel, AWA World Heavyweight Champion. There's the nice big gold belt there. It looks good on Rick. So he models it nicely. All right. Let's see. November 84 for the wrestler. The $50,000 Full Nelson Challenge match. Billy Jack gets bloody revenge against Superstar Graham. Look at both men are bloodied here big time. They had quite the war down in Florida back in 84. So that's what I mean. Like, Billy Jack Haynes was on the cover. They kind of built him up as this next big star, but his WWF run was just not good, unless you count his feud with Hercules. And then I think he tagged with Ken Patera and feuded with Demolition, and then that was pretty much it. Inside Wrestling, November 84. Dusty Rhodes, champion of champions and still the Lord of the Ring. So there's American Dream, a bloodied American Dream, creating the Lord of the Ring, which of course would end up being the Battle Bowl ring in WCW years later, with the likes of Sting winning one, and the Great Muta, and Big Van Vader, and Diamond Dallas Page. And of course, AEW would continue with MJF having the ring. So there it is, though. Dusty created it, and he had it. And for November 84, I was just talking about this earlier on, but here's proof. The race is on. Kerry Von Erich and Billy Jack, which will dominate wrestling in the 80s. So again, they're really building these two up. There's Billy Jack as the, the Florida Southern champion. Kerry is the NWA World Champion. And they were, picked as like the next guys, it looks like. And nope, not really. Not for Billy Jack, at least. Kerry may have had more success if he didn't have a outside life of partying, from the rumors and stories I've heard. For December 84, do the fans expect too much from Barry Windham for the PWI? There's Barry, a young Barry Windham there. He would be getting ready to go to the WWF soon. And the close-up photo here is of Kerry Von Erich, the modern-day warrior. That's an early photo of Kerry. Definitely not recent, but still pretty cool if you're a Kerry fan. The Wrestler for December 84. The Tully Blanchard-Rick Steamboat feud. Will Dusty Rhodes end it or make it worse? They were going to be battling at Starrcade for that television title. And how you can write to Tito Santana. So Tito was going to be winning the Intercontinental title soon. When did he win it? Or he probably already have it. Yes, he would have it already. He would have beaten Don Morocco by now. Let's see. Inside Wrestling, December 84. How Hulkamania trampled Big John Studd. There's a good photo of the Hulkster there. And we got the Road Warriors conquered the AWA. Will they be the tag team of the year again? So yes, Road Warriors are now in the AWA. They dominate that place. They win the AWA World Tag titles. And they were there probably a year and a half. And then they went back to the NWA again. But yeah, the Hulkster here finally. I mean, it's really unique that in 1984 we get Hogan winning the title and Hulkamania is running wild, and he's not on that many covers. Sports Review Wrestling for December 84. Nick Bockwinkel's own story, how the AWA title will change Rick Martel, and the Mid-Southern blood feud explodes, how jealousy destroyed Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert. So that's what I got done saying earlier on. Eddie turned on Tommy, and they had a big feud there for in Memphis. And there's the AWA champ, Rick Martel. So there it is. 1984. What a unique year in wrestling. It was pretty much coming to an end of the territories, because by 1985, we were going to have WrestleMania. We were going to have the Wrestling Classic pay-per-view. Guys were going to be leaving these regional territories to work for Vince and the WWF. It was just going to keep growing and growing. And a lot of these smaller companies would end up, these territories would end up disappearing. The AWA would lose a lot of their talent, but keep going in the 80s, but still they were getting less as each time went on. The NWA was still holding strong. They were the only real competition for Vince, I think, all through the 80s. But as you know, as time would tell, that would end in 2001 when Vince would buy the entire NWA, WCW company, footage, all that stuff. So, all right, there it is, 1984, the year in wrestling. I would have been 3 years old then. I wasn't watching it then. I don't think I started watching wrestling until maybe late 85 or sometime in 86 maybe. I kind of remember watching it at times then, but didn't have any memory of this era at all. But I do enjoy watching the stuff on the network or on videotape of this era for all the promotions. So yeah, 1984. What was your favorite match or favorite wrestler in '84? Or did you enjoy 1984 for wrestling? Right, these are things that you can easily talk about and discuss on this channel. So all right, I want to thank everyone, all the new subscribers and everyone, and all the comments lately. It's been awesome interacting with you guys and gals. I really, really do like it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And until I do another one, I'll talk to you guys later.